Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Samurai Goddess. The goddess next door takes on kung fu killers in this action-packed martial arts Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Samurai Goddess in paperback and e-readers today. Recently, there was a major shakeup at DC Comics, and this major shakeup may have a long-term impact on DC Comics and the DC Comics brand. Now, the first person to be changing their jobs in this DC Comics shakeup is Geoff Johns. Now, as everybody knows, Geoff Johns has been the executive who's the creative operating officer over at DC Comics for the last couple of years, and he has overseen the DC Comics brand as it has gone from this New 52 into the rebirth. And looks like Geoff Johns is getting ready to leave DC Comics to go do some writing ventures as related to the DC Entertainment division and TV shows like Titans and the movie side of DC Comics. And this is a positive move for Geoff Johns because his strength is writing, and if he's doing writing and production, he's playing more to his strengths than being overall in control as an executive of DC Comics, because that was a position he really wasn't qualified for, but he was really just trying to be in to try to navigate some sort of course for DC Comics after the complete disaster known as the New 52. But this position is a better position for him overall and will help him overall grow in his career. Now, the second person to leave DC Comics is Diane Nelson. Now, Diane Nelson has been the vice president in charge of DC Comics over the last decade or so. And under your Diane Nelson, your DC Comics has gone into complete decline because it was her vision that led to the New 52 and led to the really dark vision of the Snyderverse that many people have panned and reviled. And Diane Nelson's leaving DC Comics is rumored to be in an ignominious fashion. Now, many people believe Diane Nelson was fired, and they believe that the hiring of the new woman in charge at Vertigo was used as a smokescreen to cover up Diane Nelson's termination and make it look like she wasn't terminated. But I can clearly see that she was terminated based on the track record of failure she has had over the last couple of years. Now, that track record of failure has started with the New 52 back in 2011, and it has continued to build into failures like the underperforming Man of Steel with its dark vision, and the underperforming and critically panned Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, and the complete absolute failure of Justice League. It's clear that the Diane Nelson vision for DC Comics was not the vision that many comics fans had, and that can be seen through the poor sales of DC Comics over the last couple of years, because this whole New 52 idea for DC Comics, it's been dead on arrival ever since 2011, and DC Comic fans have let everyone know that they're just not interested in that dark, angry idea they have for DC Comics and that vision for DC Comics, because over the last 8 years, DC Comics has gone from a competitor in the comic book industry, the number 2 company, to a company that has been in a sad state of decline, and it's been so devastating that they cannot even move DC merchandise at retail, and they haven't been able to move DC merchandise for years. And I've seen DC merchandise sitting on the shelves of comic shops, toy stores like Toys R Us, and toy sections like Target, and this stuff just doesn't move, and we're in the middle of a major boom as related to the superhero film genre, and we're in the middle of a baby boom where an entire generation of new kids is growing up, and many of those kids are not getting a positive picture of DC Comics or the superheroes and supervillains of DC Comics, and that's all due to the mismanagement under Diane Nelson's leadership. Now, where does this take DC Comics? Well, I believe that things are starting to shift more towards a direction towards the classic DC superheroes everyone knew and grew up with. And I'm seeing indicators to that as related to the Rebirth storyline with the Doomsday Clock, and I'm seeing indicators to that as related to the Flash War. Now, looking at those storylines, I'm starting to see that there is an effort being made to try to right the ship of DC Comics now that it's a certified failure, the New 52, and the direction that DC has gone in over the last 8 years. We've seen that that direction has failed at retail with merchandising. We've seen that that direction has failed at the box office as related to the DC's cinematic universe being stillborn. And we see the complete failure as related to the DC publishing division because DC Comics right now is barely selling half the books they sold before they did this reboot. Now, when I take a look at DC Comics, they're making some strides towards moving in a new direction. And this is a positive thing for DC Comics because they're slowly taking steps to move to the right direction. And I believe that Jeff Johns was moving too slow to move. And now they're trying to make initiatives to try to right this ship. Now, they said that the DC Rebirth was supposed to be a 2-year storyline, and it was supposed to lead into a new crisis, which was supposed to take us back to classic DC. And I'm seeing indicators to that, again, with that Flash War storyline, and I'm also seeing it with the DC Universe Multiverse line, where the action figure merchandise that they were showing for on the Fwoosh was a group of figures, and all of those figures were 1990s versions of DC characters. And in that wave, they had Batman Beyond, they had Kyle Rayner Green Lantern with the crab mask and gauntlets, they had Impulse, Kingdom Come Superman, and the line was primarily focused on classic DC superhero characters. And if they do launch that wave, it would be another indicator that we were going to see a shift in direction towards classic DC, the DC universe that everyone knew, loved, and wanted to buy merchandise from. And from the response I saw on the Fwoosh and other forums, many people were excited to see these classic characters in a superhero action figure wave after getting years of multiverse characters and then seeing these multiverse characters that were based on TV shows and modern versions and movie versions of characters languish on the store shelves or not being able to find any in stores because of poor distribution. Many people saw that classic wave of characters and there was immediate excitement, and you had many people talking about how they were planning on buying cases in the same way they planned on buying cases of DC Universe Classics back from 2007 to about 2010 when the line was at the height of its popularity. Because I remember at that time, people were out here buying cases of figures because they wanted to get all the characters, and there was a lot of enthusiasm and excitement, and a lot of people were excited about things like the SDCC exclusives, and they were excited about all sorts of things going on with the line. But that enthusiasm died when DC launched the New 52, and a lot of people just left the DC brand overall then, and we started to see, after a good majority of people left, a lot more people left, and the whole DC line has gone into free fall. And I'm also seeing an indicator as related to the revamped DC Superhero Girls line, and instead of us getting dumbed down versions of DC superheroes, the new DC Superhero Girls line features these characters featured in their classic costumes, not featured in some sort of amalgamation of clothing and costume. What we're seeing is DC superheroines dressed as in their classic costumes in these dolls. So again, another indicator that DC is making efforts to try to right its ship, and they're making efforts to try to go back to classic DC. And I believe if DC does go right back to classic DC, it would really help them become a far more competitive company. Now, when it comes down to DC right now, they are making a lot of good steps and good strides, but a lot of people, they really want to see Dan Dido and Jim Lee out at DC. That would really be the indicator to them that change is really coming to DC. Now, Jim Lee has been bumped up to Jeff Johns' old position, and that's something that has me a little worried because Jim Lee is not really good at managing a business. I mean, he ran Wildstorm into bankruptcy, and he was one of the people who led to the decline of DC. And with him in that position, it's not a good thing. They really need someone like a Paul Dini or a Bruce Timm in that position to oversee DC creatively, because both Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, they have a lot of passion for DC, and that showed in the Justice League cartoon, the Batman the animated series, and Superman the animated series, and I believe that they would be a better fit for that position. And that's, again, really troubling because Jim Lee, again, is not very good at management. He's more better in a creative position, doing covers or doing art, and Dan Dido just needs to go because he knows absolutely nothing about publishing. DC really needs, again, a strong editor-in-chief. They need a strong publisher. They're in a good position, but they need somebody great there to really help them move their business along and really start to take market share from Marvel, because DC is primed in a good position to actually take market share from Marvel, and they're in a great position right now to actually really make some serious strides in that direction. They've got that new series with the Silencer and many of these other books, and these are very promising titles. But again, they need an editor-in-chief with a vision to really help them navigate a course towards taking things. And I believe if DC does go classic DC and they change back to their classic DC universe, they could take Marvel at this point, because with the way jumbled and directionless Marvel is, DC is at a point where if they go classic DC, they could take the market, and they could take major shares of the market, because many of their books are very solid, many of their books have good writing, many of their books have good stories, and many of their books have good art, and they really need to really go classic DC. And if they go in that direction, I believe they're going to take market share from Marvel, because the books being published by Marvel right now are of absolutely the poorest quality, and all they have to do is talk about how these DC heroes are classic heroes, how they are American icons, and how they are the paragons of heroism. And this could lead to DC really taking advantage of the marketplace, because this is what the customers want. Customers want their classic characters having classic adventures. They want the iconic characters in their iconic costumes, and they want these characters to be easily recognizable. And I'm seeing the direction at DC changing, and I see things starting to move forward at DC after over a decade and a half of complete directionlessness and complete dysfunction. I'm starting to see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel at DC, and I'm hoping that DC doesn't trip over its own feet like it has been under the Dido era, and maybe we're starting to see the beginning of the end of the Dido era and the beginning of a new direction for DC Comics. If you'd like to try some of my SJS Direct publications like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, The Temptation of John Haynes, and the Spinsterella trilogy, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com in the description box. And if you want to help me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.